We are now excited to announce our sponsor for today was Physician Wealth Advisors, previously branded as UMA Financial Services. And today we will be hearing from Patrick Brody. Is that everyone? Thank you. Oh, Brady. Brady, not Brody. Apologize.
Both are good. Actually, if you say Brody, then if I say something bad, someone will say, "Oh, Brody said it."
Yeah,
not Brady.
Let's actually go with that.
All right. So I only have about 20 minutes, and I won't. I'll try not to go over. I'll try to go under. That's always a better speaker. Patrick Brady. I really enjoy seeing everyone I know. It's a great group. I love Ogden Surgical. I actually started in 2002, sitting at a little booth down at the old conference center, and it was my second year here, and it's been fun ever since. I will say that COVID did help my drive time a lot, not come up as much, but that's the only blessing of COVID in Ogden is that I cut down my travel hours a few. All right, so so I can talk about a ton of stuff. So what I'm going to do is try to do a mix. And the mix is I just want to give you some of the current thinking as it comes to getting ready for retirement. I also want to talk about what's called the Secure Act 2.0 because it affects a lot of you in this room. And there are dates to it, and there's some big changes to retirement savings capacity for those who are actively involved in a retirement plan that are going to be coming up. And there's going to be a few switches you might not like, but I think in the end they're going to be good. So let me just start, though, on the golden question of how much money, Patrick, should I save in order to have enough when I retire? Most common question besides when should I get out of the market? That might be the second. So a lot of times people have come up with this number that they need to have, and it's very constant, and they come up with a number where they say, you know, at 65, if I'm getting a 8% return and I'm getting a 4% withdrawal, and I'm just using math that I was taught in some basic college class, that I should have enough money and actually I'll have more. But a lot of times what happens is that 8% is not calculated correctly, and inflation is not included in, especially variable inflation like we're dealing with right now. And so you get to this point where all of a sudden you think you're ready, and about 6 years in, you're panicking because you realize your calculations that were a constant are nowhere near a constant. Because now you're not a human spreadsheet anymore like you produced, you're actually a real human being living in a world where you've been really comfortable putting money in because you could go to work the next day and say, oh, it's that down the road, I'm going to use it. Now you're relying upon the money that you put in to come out, and you get these really nervous experiences in the middle of the night. So there's some keys to remember. Number one is, I know data's changed a little bit since COVID. So this is labor statistics data from 2019, actually published in 2022. So it's a little behind, but I'd say it's pretty much consistent. And the consistency is, the longer you live, the older you are, the longer you live. It's just this little mathematical thing, right? And actually, Social Security can test that. You can go on the Social Security website, and they'll say, okay, I turned 72 this year, I'm married, how long now am I expected to live? And actually, it will be longer than last year, and longer than just 1 year. It's actually going to extend out. So you really need to understand that longevity is going to play a risk, and you need to plan for it. We call it longevity risk. The next thing is you're going to spend different. So if you're meeting with us, we hope we do it. If you're meeting with a financial advisor, or you're doing the mini programs online that are pretty good on trying to give you an idea of how much you need in retirement, you really need to remember your spending patterns change dramatically. So, you go to work, you got to pay taxes, you got to pay travel expenses, and there's a cost to going to earn income. And when you stop going to work and earning income, obviously some of those costs go away. And then there's a gap. And so I don't want to get into like a political argument about this, but there's a gap because Social Security is going to fill in some of that once you start to use it. And my only comment on that is around 91% of Americans use Social Security as their mainstream of income today. If they don't fix Social Security, talk about an economic global disaster. So it will be fixed. It's probably going to be like the debt ceiling, where it's 11th hour fix, no one's happy, Everyone's going to blame everybody else, but it's got to be fixed. So the one thing that probably is changing in front of your eyes, and I'll give you an example of it, is how much we in this room are going to pay more for the Social Security benefit we're going to receive. So in hidden ways, they're going to start to go up. And I'll give you an example in just a few minutes of how that is. The other thing is, there really is a lot of great behavioral economic data on how to enjoy retirement and live longer. And you should study it. I know you're all into the science of these things, but there is science behind living longer and happier and not worrying as much, and your money is going to be used in a way that's differently than you expect, but it really is a state of mind, and we do know that behavioral economists tell us that the likelihood of running out of money is actually quite high for people that earn less than $50,000 a year and are not happy with their jobs. And the main reason is this. At around 50, they start doing their retirement projections on their Fidelity retirement website. They've got put in the data. At 50, they say, you know what, I'm going to go till 65. I'm strong. I can do this. Life wears on them, and around 62, the moment Social Security becomes available to them, guess what they do? They quit. And all of that data is erased of success, because they're generally, if you start that early, 3 years early, and you change your Social Security data, the data is showing around 72, you start running out of money. And thus, we see workers working longer, and it's going to become a trend. So be careful when you do these planning results that if you are planning to stop sooner than you expect, talk to someone. You really need to talk to someone, not just run the models, because you know how to put someone to sleep and you know how to wake them up, and I have no idea how to do that, but you do, and sometimes there's not a correlation to understanding the math behind how you're going to live and the amount needs. So just talk to someone, run the numbers fresh. This isn't a plug for us, but everyone knows we'll give you the advice. You don't have to invest with us. We're here for that. And we have people that will run it for you and let you know. Okay, let's go on. Make this a little bit more interesting. You are going to spend the most in your first 10 years of retirement. It is a stat that we know, and we do know you go down, that glide path goes down, and by the time you're 85, you're spending somewhat less than this, actually, especially for higher wage earners. Higher wage earners have a tendency to reduce their monthly spending in half by around the age of 85. And it's because you already were spending high, and you can only spend so much at 85. You know, if you're not getting season tickets anymore, getting on an airplane, the bladder's not working like it used to, all those things, you generally just really cut down on your expenses. Family comes to you, you don't go to them. It really does change. But a lot of times when you're putting in those numbers, when you're running your own retirement plan, you're putting in a constant. And that constant is great to oversave, but there are people that really do oversave. And in this setting, we'd say it's really good to oversave at the beginning, but you really need to run your numbers. We can tell you, are you saving too much? You might want to enjoy the journey. Are you putting too much in retirement, ironically, and not paying off your debt fast enough? Even though it's a fixed cost and it's cheap and you can write it off, it still is a cost that you may want to shift in order to keep living longer and have more money. So you need to run those type of numbers. The other thing, too, is you can see the average so someone that has $1 to $3 million in assets, this is JP Morgan data, they run this every single year, and it stays about the same. You're going to be spending somewhere between $10,000 to $11,000 annually a month for your first several years, and then by the time you're in your 70s, you're down to about $8,000. And that's the assumption is if you've been able to accumulate that much money through savings, then you probably have a good wage earner now, and you want to continue that lifestyle. That's the assumption that's kind of built into the model. And then you get to the magic number of saying, well, am I saving enough? Am I behind? And this is a little chart. By the way, if anyone wants to just go see where this data is, you type in JP Morgan Guide to Retirement. And every year, around April, they publish a massive study. And there's a lot of stuff you'd never want to look at. But there are pages in there that would help you understand. There's good explanations inside. And it's things like this where you say, you know what? I spend, remember, there's a difference here. It says retirement savings checkpoints. A lot of times we might earn $350,000, but we're really only spending $200 to live. And so you use the amount that you're spending to do your calculation. Don't necessarily use the amount that you earn pre-tax. That's a really important component of this. And so if you're looking at that and you go, oh, I earn $300,000, I got to have 12.2 times that, and I'm not even close to it, you're probably not spending $300,000. You're probably spending less, and so go down the scale a little bit. Also, remember that the number on there, the current age should be the youngest, if you're married or have a significant other and you're relying upon each other, it's the youngest person in the marriage that number correlates to. So don't do it for yourself. If your spouse is 5 years younger, that's the number you're using. You're not using necessarily yours, because we plan for the youngest person to live the longest. And that's an important part of math. That's also important when you do your own spreadsheets. Remember, it's based upon your spouse, who's the youngest, that you need to run it. All right, here's the big changes. All right, this stuff actually is where you should listen a little bit. It's not, I don't have any glorified stories or exciting things to talk about, except this is the changes that Congress just made, Secure Act 2.0, and you can see there's dates on the right side. So here's some really, for the younger physicians, or those still saving, particularly for your kids, so think about this too. For those of us that are older and our kids are now in college or they're married, help them know these things. So starting in 2024, you can now have inside a 401k an emergency savings account. So it is saved after tax, just kind of like a Roth, but it comes out tax-free. So the reason they do that is because it's so hard to behaviorally take money from your checking account to a savings account and not spend it. But it's very easy to take money from a check being deposited before it gets there, putting it into a savings account for emergencies that's away. Like it's hard to get to. It takes 30 days to get it, or maybe a little bit less, 14 days. But that's a great feature that's being added. There is a cap on it, of course. But it's still better than nothing. It's really going to help those that maybe we're really concerned about, and that's our kids. The cap's $2,500 you can put in. Yep. So or the actual account value. So it's not huge. It's just enough. You have to remember, they're using the average median income is somewhere around $60,000, and they're not using median incomes of maybe $150 to $300. No. Nope. It's not. So that helps a lot. That's a great question. You are going to, there are a student loan provision here for younger physicians that are paying. So your match, so if you work at like Intermountain, I'm not sure when they'll start it, but in 2024, you can have your match now go towards student loans, which is a fascinating thing. It's very helpful. In the end, I know it might feel like, no, you should be paying those yourselves. I actually think you are, and it's just giving you that behavioral capacity to pay them off a little bit better. That's also good for your kids. So remember to let them know, 2024, talk to your, hey, son, go talk to your employer about, do you want some of your money to go to that student loan that I'm not going to pay off for you? All right. Greater savings and retirement plans, this is important too. The auto-escalate doesn't matter as much here, but the increased catch-up amount is going to change. So once you get to 60, because right now you can do a catch-up of $7,500 once you hit the year you hit 50. So that's another thing in this room. You might say, oh, I got to wait till I'm 50. Well, if you turn 50 in December, guess what? You get to start on January 1st, even though you're 49 years old. So it's the year you turn 50, and that's going to go up, and that's going to go up by 50% starting at the age of 60. And that's a really nice advantage for people. They're trying to get people to save more, because then they're also making it so you don't have to take out as much until later. So the RMD is starting at the age of 73 right now, and by the time we reach 2032, it's going to be, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes up, to be honest. I bet they see it going up. Right now, you know, the RMD is starting at 75 for individuals who reach the age of 74 in 2032. So, 2032. So that's good. It's delaying. By the way, the Social Security, the amount you have to take in required minimum distributions, if anyone's living with that, if you aren't living with that, get ready, because it's frustrating for a lot of people on how much you have to take out that you don't need and you have to pay taxes on, especially in your later 70s. But they've reduced the amount you're required to take out as well. It might not feel like it. One of the worst things that people had to deal with last year is your account balance. You had a classic balanced portfolio, 60 stock, 40 bonds. Everyone said that's the one to have. All of a sudden, it's down 10%, and you have to take out 4 to 5%. And that's just infuriating, because it's something called feeding the bear, where already the bear market has taken your money down, and then you have to take another withdrawal. And it's tough. And frankly, I wish they would have fixed it for that 1 year, but I think they fixed too many things, thus we have inflation. So they kind of had to stop that. And then the last one is, this is really cool. And 529 plans. Common thing, I need 529, tell me the rules. Wonder if my child doesn't use it. Well, guess what? Starting in 2024, you can roll some of it over into a Roth. And that's a big deal. So you give it to the child, they take it, and they get to put it into a Roth if they don't use it. And that's a pretty good gift to the kids. You can also take it back. You don't have to give it to them, by the way. I don't know, for clarification, if you can move your own into the Roth or not. It might be. I haven't seen the tax code directly. We're just getting this information right now. But there are a lot of changes coming, and you really should stay abreast of it so that you don't get into the year after and say, no one told me. So just keep aware. We'll try to make you aware from our position as advisors as well. All right. I'm almost done. Social Security, simple. The longer you wait, the more you have. A lot of times people can say, I'm not going to live very long. Should I take it sooner? And the answer is yes. So it is based upon your expected longevity. How do you guess that? You guys all know. You understand genetics play a role, but not always. So if you do think your life is going to be longer than 81, then most likely you should wait to take it and not take it at 62. This is a really good slide, and again, I've told you the address or how to find it, Guide to Retirement. This is a really good, simple place to look and get an idea, am I thinking correctly? I'm going to suggest to be careful of the ads on the radios that say, you are going to waste so much money taking Social Security if you do it wrong. There's not really much you can waste. You might make a couple of errors, but it's not as bad as these radio advertisements make it sound. Get solid advice that someone doesn't want to sell you an annuity on the back end and trick you into coming in because of Social Security. I'll just warn you, that's what they do. So they trick you into fear of Social Security, and then they come in the back end and convince you there's a better way. So be wise. That's my job. I have a job because of everyone got taken back in the 1980s. I'm grateful for them being taken, only for the fact that I have a job. I think people got hurt so bad from bad advice, and the UMA really did their best to create a product that you guys could use whenever you need to try to get some solid ideas. Okay, healthcare, we're going to skip. I want to talk about 3 things. There is a recovery taking place, whether you know it or not. So stocks are recovering. Now, are they recovering as fast as they went down for a period? No. But are they having some good outcomes since last May? And the answer is absolutely yes. So don't think that we're still in the pits. We're not. Now, we are in the pits when you get to this issue, and that is where bonds, long-term bonds or medium-term bonds, are not paying as well as short-term treasuries right now. We just hit this around May 12th, I want to say, or right before it, the week before that, we hit this number. But here's something that you need to understand. So the big fear, and this is where I'll end, are we going to hit a recession? I don't know. It seems to be more likely that we could hit one than not at the moment, but the Feds have really put themselves in a position that they can react. So we're at 5 to 5.2. They've said they're going to most likely stop, and they've also given guidance at their last meeting that they're most likely going to have to reduce interest rates later in the year into next year, and they could reduce them all the way up to 3% down. So what happens? All these cash accounts we have, and actually you're watching it happen right now in CDs. These CDs that you're seeing like Golden West, America First, that were paying 5.2% just 3 months ago, they're now down to 5. The new ones for a little longer are down to 4.6. They're already trending down. And that is happening because the feds are stopping. And so even if we go to recession, what happens? They loosen money in a recession in order to put gas on it, on the economy to make it go faster. What happens? Your bond prices go up, because right now they're really down. It was unprecedented time. We haven't had bonds drop this far for, I think, historically ever in modern times since like 1925. But those prices are going to shift. Your bond mutual fund values are going to go up, and the dividends that they've been buying over the last couple of years that are higher are going to start giving you a massive advantage. So what happens is when you've moved money too much to cash, you have what's called reinvestment risk. So now bonds that were cheap today are now expensive in a year, and you're going from a good earning, now you have to find something that's equivalent, and it gets hard. So you got to be really careful on how much and how long you hold cash. And it's what we teach. It's not easy to understand, I know, but it is called reinvestment risk. So a CD for 18 months is great. Don't get me wrong. When you come out of it, you've got to find a different solution. And you won't find another CD at that rate. So Citibank high yield right now on their internet is 3.8, American Express 3.7. You can go there and get some yield, but those are going to start to come down too. Anyway, watch those things. If a recession comes, don't panic. Markets are forward-looking. They're not behind. So they're predicting that things will get better, and they've already started to price in that a recession could happen. Stocks generally go up very nicely. As the recession starts to go down, you'll watch, the market will go up, but everyone will be in recession. It's a weird thing, but that's the job of the market. So I wish we all would have known that last year to get out, but you can't do that. We don't run for the hills when things might be bad. Unfortunately, we want to run for the hills when they're really bad, but we can't. And then you have to have a different course. All right, thanks for listening. Any questions? All right. Hey, thank you so much. Have a great day. By the way, thanks for supporting UMA. And also, we're called Physician Wealth Advisors. I don't know if you're here this morning. We had to change our name. There's a little farming finance company in the 60s that trademarked FS together. Financial Services was ours. We didn't trademark ours. Back in the 90s, who would have known? And so they forced everyone to change their name or pay a nice sum of money to them, and we had to change our name. So the board decided to change it to this. Remember, we're not Physician Wealth Management. We're Physician Wealth Advisors. Wealth is at any level. So if you're just starting, that's your wealth. If you're older and you have more, that's your wealth. So don't be afraid by the word wealth, please. We're here to help you no matter where you are. So thanks.